Hey guys, it's Kevin again. I know this is a bit early for this review to go out. I was originally planning on reviewing this to you when it actually leaked online back in August, but I told myself I'm going to wait, and I decided I'd wait mainly because of what ended up happening with the show, which I'll get into, but a bunch of shows that are, as we know, this week for TV is basically just like premiere week craziness. That's basically what it is. I mean, there's something premiering every single night this week that I'm reviewing, every night. There's not one show that premieres on a night and I'm not reviewing it. That's how it's going to be. Monday, there's a lot. Tuesday, there's a lot. Wednesday, it starts to die down. Thursday, there's something up there, there's stuff on there as well. Friday, there's really nothing. But for the first 4 days, there's a large multitude of shows, and the good thing is that some of them have actually been leaked online to Solar Movie, and because of that, I'm going to review them to you. Now, the first one I'm going to review, I was never really looking forward to this show that much. I was hoping it would be really good, but I didn't know how it was going to be, and that is Minority Report, the new Fox show that is, I'm going to say, loosely based on the movie. I have not seen the 2002 film. I want to watch it for classic movies, and I honestly might watch it after this. But like I said, I was never really like, oh my god, I can't wait for this show. It looked like it had some sort of potential, though. The trailer looked like it was going to be a fun show. It looked like it was going to be interesting. And I have to say, guys, that after watching this pilot, I really don't want to talk about this show anymore after this review because Minority Report is the definition of cheap fall TV that clearly was made with really no effort put into it whatsoever. And also, I think had a lot of elements that could work very well if it was a different type of show. Really, that's my biggest problem with the show, and I'll get into it. I have a lot of problems with the show, and unfortunately, guys, I can't really say a lot of positive things about this show. The premise I really do like. It is based loosely on the movie. It doesn't have, Tom Cruise's character, but it's set in 2065, and we basically follow this guy, Dash. Now, I'm not going to do a recap like I usually do, because I really didn't like this show. I really don't, and I will tell you guys that this is a show where if I hear that it gets better, maybe I'll tune back in. But for right now, I really was very disappointed by it. I was never really looking forward to it, but I was at least hoping for a fun show here, and it's really not at all. Basically, we follow this guy, Dash. He is this precog who, ever since he was a little kid, he basically is able to predict crimes. Now, that is definitely very interesting, but unfortunately, the pre-crime unit was dismantled in 2054, and that really gets rid of what could be very interesting in this show, and it forced law enforcement to rely on newer methods to fight crime. But before it was dismantled, Dash, his twin brother Arthur, and their sister Agatha were part of the program that gave them their unique gifts, and unfortunately, they can't really have a life, and they've kind of split off and all gone to their own different directions, and Dash is now using his ability to help out this detective, while also trying to find his missing twin, and that really is what the show's about. There's a lot more stuff that I think could have been a lot better, and the show I think could be a lot more compelling had a few things not happen. First off, right off the bat, I'm really not a fan of the plot of this show. I don't like that this place was dismantled, because I think it happened in the movie, it did, but in the movie, you got to see that. I'm looking at the movie right now, it does get dismantled. That's what happens at the end of the movie. But the movie, you actually got to see the pre-crime, and it could have been very interesting to see, and because the show wasn't really a direct continuation of it, I don't understand why they had to follow what the original movie did, because this is completely different than the original movie, which I was fine with going into it. The problem is the show thinks it's a lot better than it is, and it's really not. The acting is sci-fi worthy. That's how good it is. It's not very good at all. There's not a single good person in this cast. Well, there are good people in this cast, but they're really bad. Stark Sands was one of the reasons I really wanted to watch this show. Stark Sands, in my opinion, is a good actor. He was really good in Kinky Boots. Kinky Boots is still one of my favorite musicals of all time. He was great in there, but I never saw him as an action hero or a sci-fi star. And here you really see that he's trying. He's really trying to give a great performance. God, he tries. He just fails miserably. He is not very good in this role at all. It's very, very laughable. You don't for 1 second believe he is this powerful guy. It's very laughable. Whenever he runs, I was laughing. Like, you think Tom Cruise running is laughable, which I don't know why people find that funny, but Dash running, Stark Sands' character, is hilarious. You know, the scenes with him aren't thrilling. He's not a good action hero. He doesn't carry the show very well at all, and I really was not that compelled to his character, and I would have wanted to see a lot more with his character. I will say, the one thing I will credit the show is the narration. The first 2 minutes of this show I thought were really, really good, and then we had to get to present times when the show got really, really goofy. And it really didn't work for me. I'll get to the tone of the show. My biggest problem, though, is Megan Good as the detective here. Now, again, I know that Fox is doing that cliche of you have the main star and then you have female detective, but that is literally right out of Sleepy Hollow or Bones or another show called Rosewood. I mean, how many times is Fox going to do this? I was at least hoping there was something different with her. Literally nothing different with her. She doesn't even have a character. She's a detective that Dash works with, and that's it. That's it. There's nothing else with her. So how the hell am I supposed to latch on to her as a character? That's what I don't like about procedural shows. I've talked about this before. A procedural show, however, can be really good when the two cast members have chemistry. These two don't. They do not have any chemistry whatsoever. It feels forced, it feels cheesy, and it just feels like they wanted to recreate the success of Bones and Sleepy Hollow, and it really didn't work here. But the thing, again, that those shows have going for them is the chemistry between the two actors. I've said it before. If a show does procedural, as long as it's good enough and has a good enough cast and is well acted, it still could be a very good show. For example, the movie behind me, Black Mass, which I just hung up this poster, it has procedural elements in it, but the cast is really what held that movie together. Another show I can think of that did a very good job with this was The Flash last year. The Flash had a really great compelling storyline, but it also had some very interesting procedural elements to it, and it's really because of how well the cast interacted. And here, these two really don't interact well at all. The problem is that besides these two, the rest of the cast really doesn't have a lot to do in this show, and they really aren't very good at all. Laura Regan as Agatha is laughable in this show. I really thought she was hamming it up. You know, you can clearly tell she's completely against precog program. She thinks what Dash is doing is completely wrong, but she's so over the top and cheesy that what she said was laughable. I didn't find her character interesting. I found her annoying, and I found her boring. Wilma Valderrama as well as Will, I didn't really care about him, and neither did I care about Daniel London, which I should, because he's from the original movie. To me, what this seemed like is that they only did this for ratings. They wanted to get people from the original movie to watch this show, and there's no way they're going to do that, because he's really the only thing that the show has going for it, and it really doesn't work, because, one, I haven't seen the original movie, so I'm not really latched on to him as a character. Two, he comes in way too late into the show, and I really didn't find him that compelling of a character as I should. What I wish the show would do is that it does have an interesting recurring storyline of Dash's missing brother, Arthur. The problem with this is that they actually recasted the role a few months before this show came out. They recast, I believe, in it was June or July. I heard that they were changing it. Dash was originally, Stark Sands was originally going to play both roles. That could have been very compelling to watch, and I feel them not doing this really cheapen things out, because now you have Stark Sands. He has a lot of big shoes to fill as Tom Cruise, and even though he's nothing like him, people are constantly going to compare the two because this is Minority Report, and it's called Minority Report. And if you wanted it to not be compared, you simply should not have called it Minority Report. And I know that it is the same plot and things like that, but it's just not that it's just not that good of a show. The directing in the show is horrible. It's honestly horrible. The show takes itself way too seriously, and the problem with the show is that it's so damn cheesy. Everything about the show is so cheesy. It's forced. It constantly throws things in your face. Constantly, they have to remind you, this is 2025, the future. Pre-crime was dismantled. They constantly have to remind you these things, and it's like, I'm not an idiot. You don't have to remind me every 5 seconds that pre-crime was dismantled. I've been paying attention to the show. And the problem is that by them doing this, it really got me more and more irritated. So I'm just like, okay, can we please go to something else? And they also don't really do a very good job with showing Dash's crime abilities. It doesn't really work. It wasn't very compelling, and I definitely really did enjoy seeing that, I have to say. I did not think that was very well done at all. And when the show focuses on the procedural element, I couldn't even tell, like, what was going on with that because I just wasn't really into it. This is a show that should not be procedural. It really shouldn't. I think it has a good enough storyline with finding his brother and him connecting these crimes. Maybe that could have been very interesting, but the fact it's procedural, I really can't latch on these characters because I don't care about them. I don't think they're very good actors. If they bonded very well, then maybe I would continue watching this show. But this show doesn't really have very good acting at all, so I really can't say much about it. The screenplay is boring. When there's nothing going on in the show, it is downright boring. The only scene I really found that interesting was a scene where Dash starts talking about his brother, but then that goes right back into the case because that's what they have to focus on. They have to focus on this case, and it really just didn't work for me, especially in a pilot episode. What a pilot episode needs to do is establish the foundation of a show, and I really feel this pilot did not really do that at all. It kind of felt like, it didn't even feel like a pilot, it felt like a season premiere of a show that already existed. It really did not feel like a pilot to me. It felt a lot more like, this is a show that's been on for years and years and years, and it kind of felt like Doctor Who, honestly, because Doctor Who, they change stuff up every now and again, but Doctor Who does it well because, they change up the Doctor and things like that. This really just felt like a show that had already been on, and sometimes that's good. In this case, it's not, because they make you feel like, oh, I already know these characters. I don't know these characters. I want to know stuff about the character of Lara, but we don't. She's just a detective. That's all she is. She really does nothing except be a detective and interact with Dash, and there were some clever things in there, but the thing is, the things that I should enjoy in the show, I don't. The most I got out of the show was I found what they did with some of the pop culture references very clever. Like, they do a 75th season of The Simpsons. Okay, that was kind of cool seeing Fox poke fun of themselves. Or changing a name of a football team, or the 85th Super Bowl. That stuff I found very funny. I really enjoyed that. The problem is, this is not a funny show, and there were times where I was laughing and I knew I shouldn't be. It's a very, very laughable show, and it really shouldn't be at all. The cinematography is awful. It's downright awful in the show, and the problem is that the beginning had some really, really good shots. The scenes where we saw Dash, Arthur, and Agatha as kids, within that cornfield, memorizing. I mean, I was into it right away, and then after that, they just cut away, and I know that this was just, before it premiered. I don't really feel they give a shit about fixing the technology, though. The cinematography looks like it was made in 2001, and you would think that the 2001 movie was this, because it's 2015, there's a lot more you can do with technology, and a lot of people say that the Minority Report was really good because of the technology that it had in 2001. And yeah, now it's not as impressive, and I wish they would have maybe changed something up, and they really didn't do that. I honestly would have wanted to get into Dash's head more, which we really don't do a lot of. When we do get into his head, it is very interesting, but they just don't do it enough for me to latch on him as a character, and I really wanted to enjoy his character, and I really didn't. The score as well is very cheesy, and it really didn't work for me. And also, the characters, they introduced way too many characters in this episode that really had no place in the episode except they were just the case of the week, and I'm really not a fan of that. The show did end on a cliffhanger, but it was so weird and so abrupt. It's like, oh yeah, now we're gonna give you a reason to come back. Because I'm pretty sure they knew that fans would not come back unless they threw in some sort of a cliffhanger, and they did, and it felt so forced and out of place, and I'm like, what is this? Like, are you trying to be a procedural show, or are you trying to be a recurring storyline? I really feel that had the show not been a procedural show, I would enjoy it a lot more, but I really don't. I don't find the characters that interesting. I'm really not into the show very much at all. I was surprised by how not into the show I was. I mean, I'd say right when we got to Dash in the modern world, it took me about, I'd say, 5 seconds to lose a lot of interest out of this show and suddenly just think this isn't very good. And if you guys know, you know I started watching the first 10 minutes of the pilot and I turned it off after because I didn't like it. But I wanted to review for you guys. I want to give you a nice review because I felt I should finish it so I can give you a review and not just say, oh, this show sucks. I want to give you reasons why this show sucks. And I feel I brought up some very valid points. And I'm just going to warn you guys, don't watch this show. Don't. And I know you're saying, give it a chance, give it a chance. Do you realize how many shows I plan on watching this year? I'm watching a lot of shows, and like I told you guys, if a show has a mediocre pilot this year, I'm just not going to watch it. And again, further down the line, if you guys say, hey, you should tune back into Minority Report, it actually has gotten very good, and it's a lot better now, then maybe I will tune back in. But for right now, this show really seems like it's something that Fox made because they needed a new show to follow Gotham, and they really couldn't find anything. So if they really want to do this, why not put Sleepy Hollow on after Gotham? Don't have it on after Bones and have a weird random crossover with Bones, which I still find very strange. Do that because that's exactly what this is. It's Sleepy Hollow, but with a sci-fi element, and really doesn't differentiate itself at all. It's not very different. It doesn't do anything new, really. I wish it could have been a lot better, but unfortunately, guys, I don't rate TV shows, but I'm going to rate this pilot because I did not like it, and I'm going to rate Minority Reports a 2 out of 5 or a D+. This show just was not very good. I really was not into it. I wish it would have been better, but I just wasn't very compelled. I wasn't that into it, and I just was not able to latch onto these characters like the show wanted me to. The show also is very cheesy, and I don't feel the show realizes how cheesy it is. There were some things, like I said, The Simpsons 75th season I thought was clever, but the show is not meant to be a funny show, and there are moments where I'm laughing and I don't feel I'm supposed to be, and it really ruined things for me. Also, Steven Spielberg really needs to stop producing shows because all the shows that he produces end up being very bad. The only one I've seen is The Whispers and this, and The Whispers was probably the best of the few because it was the only one there were times where I laughed during The Whispers, but I thought it was a good show overall, even though it wasn't that good of a show. It was a good show, I stayed with it. This, I just can't stick with, because the thing that The Whispers had, it had a compelling, recurring storyline. This has the potential to do that, but I don't feel they're really going to focus on it because it seemed a lot more like this is just a case of the week format, and I'm really not into that really at all. I think if the show was a bit more, if they would have hired better actors, if they would have, not miscasted Stark Sands, because he is horribly miscast in this role, like I said, then I think the show could have been a lot better, and it ultimately is not. But that's basically my review of Minority Report. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you guys thought of this first episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Just don't watch it. It's that simple. Don't watch it. Don't waste your time with it. It's nothing new. It's nothing interesting. And if you're going into this not wanting it to be like the movie, you're still not going to want to enjoy it. I knew this wasn't going to be the movie. I knew it wasn't going to be very good. I was at least expecting a fun show. It's not fun because it takes itself way too seriously, and when it tries to have fun with itself, it just feels out of place, and it really felt like the show didn't know what it wanted to be when it tried to have fun with itself. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this pilot if you have seen it. I do have 2 other pilots that I am going to review for you guys. I don't know when I'm going to review them, but like I said, I really don't plan on continuing this show. But if you guys tell me that it got better, then maybe I will. But I don't really plan on sticking with it from here on out. I'm not very compelled. I'm not interested. And why should I stick with a show if I'm not very compelled in it? It's that simple. To me, at least, I need to at least enjoy the characters. I don't need the most interesting storylines in the show. I need to at least enjoy the characters and latch on to them for me to like the show. And I'm not attached to any of the characters. The effects are cheap. The story's weak. The show is very cheesy. It doesn't understand itself. It is a pilot, but it felt more, like I said, like a show that already existed, and it hasn't yet. This is the first episode, and it felt like we've known these characters, and we haven't. But that's basically my review. Hope you all enjoy it, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be, I think, for a review of another pilot. I'm not sure if I'll watch another one today, but I want to get this one out, and I will see you guys for that. And I'm sorry that I didn't like the show as much as you guys did. If you like it, fine. Let me know why you liked it. Let me know what you think of the show. Do you like the procedural element, or do you feel they should have stuck with maybe Dash finding Arthur? I think that's a much more compelling storyline. Do you feel Stark Sands was miscasted? I personally feel everyone was miscasted on this show. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Girl Meets World, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.